Hello and welcome to News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform News9 Plus. I'm Aditya Raj Kaul. Naik Subhash Chander was killed today on the line of control in a gunfight with a group of heavily armed terrorists from Pakistan attempting to cross the border in the Poonch district of Jammu and Kashmir. He is the 15th military personnel to die in the Jammu and Kashmir in the recent weeks. Intelligence agencies have told News9 Plus that 4 to 5 groups of heavily armed Pakistani terrorists, highly trained and equipped with some of the most modern and sophisticated weapons, including American-made M4 carbine rifles fitted with night vision devices, have infiltrated into India from Pakistan over 50 days ago and are hiding in the upper reaches of Jammu region. These terrorists have local guides in the form of overground workers helping with their movements, logistics and food. Security forces have now launched a massive counter-terror operation all out to track and hunt down the terrorists and to go after terror support base, especially the overground workers. Since the beginning of the year, this region has seen 14 terror attacks across 6 districts, which have resulted in the deaths of 27 people, including 11 security personnel, a village guard and 5 terrorists. So why did it take the security forces this long to react? And why is the counterintelligence at the weakest in the Jammu division at this level? Joining me to discuss this on the News9 Plus show are General Hasnain, the former GOC of the 15 Corps, and General Sanjay Kulkarni, former DG of the Infantry. Thank you very much for joining us on the News9 Plus show. General Hasnain, I've been reading you extensively. You've been writing not just now, but for years together on Jammu and Kashmir. You've had, incredible experience on ground there. And you recently, in an interview, also mentioned about the intelligence levels, the weaknesses that are out there, and why south of the Pir Panjal has been a little difficult. What's happening on ground? What is your assessment? Because, I was speaking to senior officers who said that now we have decided that more SPOs will be brought in, more VDCs will be engaged from the villages. Couldn't this have happened earlier? Shouldn't we have guessed that perhaps Jammu could have been opened as a new frontier? And why is it taking so long in our counter response to these terror attacks?
Inviting me to your show. It's a very, very important show. You have as much experience as I have. In fact, you have been also writing and conducting these shows. So I think we can put our minds together on this very, very important issue. I'll address your last part of the question. Why has the reaction been comparatively slow, or what is being perceived to be slow? I would say this is one of the most difficult operations that any security force conducts. It's a hybrid war situation. It's not a clear-cut conventional war situation, where you have an adversary in front of you, you have front lines, you have rear lines, you have flanks. Here there are no flanks, no rear lines, everything is one environment. It takes a tremendously long time to get a grid going. You can put the troops on ground, physically you will be there on the ground, but unless everything meshes together, unless you have your synchronization with the population, unless the local agencies, the police, the counterintelligence, all of them come on board together, it becomes very difficult to make a well-oiled machine. And that everyone who's a part of these operations understands. Why didn't we think of this before? That's the question which you have raised. See, Aditya, we have been in Jammu and Kashmir, we have been hit by multiple threats over a period of time.
Right.
You've had Kashmir, you've had the line of control itself, you've had the line of control in the Jammu region, you've got the inner regions in Jammu, you've got the IB sector, and then on to beat all this, you've got the Chinese front, where the line of actual control is. All these, when you put them together, you have to have adequacy of resources to be able to address everything simultaneously. That's a difficult thing. Even for a country as big as ours, we have a lot of resources, our economy is doing well, we can put together all the resources. But what happens more often than not in the security side is that you prioritize. And in the priority of things, definitely Ladakh was very high. Kashmir was very important after 5th of August 2019, but that's where the real integration efforts had to go in. So a comparatively Jammu region, which saw terrorism for the better part of about 15 to 17 years was given perhaps a bit of a short shrift. Nobody's fault. That's why I'm not faulting anyone. It's just that there was slightly lower priority. And this is the place where we found to extract resources. Every time we needed more troops, we pulled out from here. I can give you an example. In my case, when I needed more troops in Kashmir, I immediately demanded troops from the Jammu region and I got them. Obviously, there will be effects of this over a period of time. So therefore, I am strongly of the belief it's a matter of time before we get our act together. It's already happening. Intelligence doesn't come easy. It will take a little time, but I'm sure very soon, sooner than later, all this will come intact.
That's right. I have no doubts in my mind that the Indian Army has the capability, and in fact, in the last 48 to 72 hours, have already launched an operation to track down and in fact neutralize these terrorists. General Kulkarni, I have this sheet in my hand where I have this data of the last 3 years. I've been trying to study this ever since the ceasefire actually began. Now, I'm not going into whether the ceasefire was wrong or right, but the question here is that we have had more than 50 casualties of security personnel. We've also had, in the last only 30 to 40 days, about 10 terror attacks in Jammu or major encounters that have been taking place. Yesterday, we had a killing in action in Jammu. Today, we have had a similar in Kashmir. And General Hasnain said something very important. He said that synchronization is very important. And this is what I've learned also from security personnel, particularly from the Jammu and Kashmir police also, is that, many IAS, IPS officers who are put in are very courageous and very intelligent, but they take time to understand the terrain. They take time to understand and build a rapport with the people. Is that a weakness? And also the redeployment that has happened in the last 3 years towards Ladakh. Do you think that these are some of the areas where we need to perhaps recalibrate our strategy?
Thank you. And nothing more can be said than what General Hasnain has said, because he's actually an authority since he was there. But since I commanded my battalion in Doda, and at the time, and from 96 to 99, and on and off postings over there subsequently as sub-area commander also. So I know what exactly the ground is. What happens is, over a period of time, especially in the Jammu division, we've had normalcy. And since the normalcy has been there for a long time, a bit of, and then obviously if the need is felt somewhere, the troops will be withdrawn because there's just, I wouldn't say use the word idling around, but they don't have as much as what to do that they have in the valley is concerned. The valley has a fantastic counterinsurgency grid, very nice deployments, everybody well synchronized, everyone right from the police to the central armed police forces, and also the army, all synchronized, various meetings, everything's in place. In Jammu over a period of time, as I said, I was there from 96 to 99, and thereafter then things were stabilized, and for the last about 20 years, things are looking quite normal. Invariably, when things start getting normal, it's the duty of the police and the local administration to take charge. They cannot always perpetually outsource their individual security to the security forces. The security forces are there to bring in normalcy. And once normalcy is brought in, they should take charge of it. Somewhere down the chain, probably yes, they would have. And over a period of time, the information flow stops or dilutes because you are not taking them seriously. For every information that you have to invest time, you have to invest money, you have to invest making friends, then only you keep getting information from everywhere. Now, again, from my own example over there, we had Mr. Chamanlal Gupta. He was the minister later, and since around the same time. And he just walked into my office because my office was bang on the road. So he wanted to know because generally the CEO of an RR battalion will fly a national flag. So he walked in to see who's it. He came in and he asked me, Colonel, what can I do for you? I said, can I get about 1,000 odd SPOs? He said, definitely. I said, but I want 200 girls and I want about 800 boys. He said, no problem. He paid for them. I think it was 1,500 rupees those days or 1,800 rupees, something like that. And invariably, then I established again. You can well imagine my own battalion, and I have another 1,000 people acting as my eyes and ears. So much better that I have all girls, all boys spread all over. I am not responsible to them except for whatever little, whenever they came food, well, reporting to me twice a day, ensuring that this thing, a little bit of management, but they were all in their respective villages and feeding me with adequate information. The slightest, even if they saw someone who was not known to them, they would report. They would be part of my ROPs. They would be able to identify the buses that these are the people who are not there. And the kind of things that you all would do in the insurgency area. You found that these SPOs, then we graduated to VDCs, started giving them 303s, and then ensured areas like Navapachi, Warwan, distant areas, Pada, Patnazi, they have huge areas spread all around Kishtwar, Doda, Bhadarwa, everywhere. And we could control an area so large because of our eyes and ears. Now, these eyes and ears, you have to invest a lot of time, a lot of money, make friends, make things, and there's information flow. Now, when everything is normal, hunky-dory, the COs are also changing. There you find what you rightly said. I had an IPS officer there, young officer who's come from some other state, and first he doesn't understand the language. Then he has a little other problem. Then there are local. The local man is
Precisely.
from the rank and has become an officer over there. Here's the officer who's come straight from the Academy of IPS and the first posting. Then you have other people over there. So there is a lot of problems. There's no denying the fact. Jammu division was taken for granted that nothing happens here. Now here you have what is called as a mixed population. Very nicely said. So you have mixed population, so information should flow. It doesn't flow. It is easier to get information in the valley than to get information in this mixed population area. Somewhere the population may be 50-40, 60-40, depending whether it's Kishtwar, Doda, Riyasi, Rajouri, Punj, Kathua, and all the Udhampur, and all these places over there. So this information flow is very important. The moment the information flow dries up, whatever the reason, and it takes time to build again, because you have to invest a lot of time and money, as I said, again and again, into these eyes and ears. Right? The next part is the huge forested areas, very difficult. In these forests, you cannot live off the land. You have to have someone giving you logistic support, and that logistic support comes from these OGWs. And once you've invested your time and money, these eyes and ears tell you that these are the houses that you really need to look into it, and then you know how to handle it. Then you will find all these women who go for grass cutting in the morning, late, they will be carrying huge amount of breakfast for them, leave it at a particular place, carry ammunition, carry messages. Then families whose house, one or our child is a militant, he's moving around there. So these kind of a mix. What I personally feel, somewhere down the chain, I go along with your Hasnain, a bit of synergy between all of it is required. And that synergy is very essential. It must flow. We have to hit very, very hard at all these OGWs, and they are giving information. This Bakarwal, the Gunjar, all of them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Top. They all have to be sort of taken along. Otherwise, you'll find it's very difficult because the terrain is very difficult.
Synergy is something that is essential, that is important, and this is the time to show that synergy on ground, and I'm sure that is happening. But General Hasnain, if I can come to you on a broader issue, and this is involving Pakistan. I have a comparative analysis of the last 6 months in my hands right now, that every time there was a major attack in Balochistan or in KPK, whenever the Pakistani army or the frontier corps experienced heavy casualty, the same day there was a major terror attack in Kashmir or in Jammu. This is actually happening from Feb this year to July, every single day. Do you think that the Pakistan army, the deep state, Rawalpindi, is trying to deflect attention from what is happening on their western border by increasing and beginning a new frontier in Jammu? And trying to show to the people that, we are very much alive out there. Imagine the message that was sent on the day of the oath-taking ceremony, the first major terror attack with 9 civilians being killed. And do you also think, sir, that Asif Munir actually wants an extension? And perhaps this is one of the ways of doing that.
See, Aditya, I have been often interpreting, writing and analyzing and saying that Pakistan has invested 35 years here.
Yes.
Tremendous amount of money, time and resources. Lots of lives have been lost of the Pakistan army, of Pakistani-sponsored terrorists, everyone. And they have gained almost nothing. With what happened on the 5th of August, the clock has been turned around and integrative effort is going on, outreach to the people, and it's a matter of time. Everyone talks about it's a matter of time, and you find almost this generation and the next generation of people getting integrated into the Indian system completely. Pakistan cannot accept, because this investment, 35 years, is so important for its national perception of its own national security. And you know, Pakistan is not ruled by a monolith, it is ruled by different layers of the deep state itself. So one layer of the deep state may never know what the second layer of the deep state is doing. Your observation is very interesting. I have not really come across it myself to say that every time something happens in Balochistan or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, there is almost in sync with that, there's an action here. But the one which took place on the 9th of June was most interesting. It should have been expected, because a huge symbolic gesture of the swearing in of the Prime Minister, the third coming of the Prime Minister, democracy, the success of democracy in India, Lok Sabha elections conducted in peacefully with 58% turnout in Jammu and Kashmir. These were great symbols, and obviously to counter that, that was the moment when Pakistan had to do something. And they did it. And they did it in such a way so that the ripples and the implications of that travel around the rest of India. They chose their target very sensibly. They looked at the possibility. They could have targeted an army bus or an army vehicle or something like that. But they realized the implications by targeting pilgrims, Hindu pilgrims on top of that, in an area like that, which Sanjay Kulkarni was saying was 40, 60, 60, 30 or whatever it is. It has its own connotations. So this is a very interesting aspect of it. Pakistan, whether they can synchronize their operations almost simultaneously or not. If they can synchronize it, the message is very, very powerful. But even if they cannot, they have to keep the Jammu sector or any part of Jammu and Kashmir active. And to show that they have the moral domination in those areas, that is the message they're sending out to the world. Because the counter message from India is, we are in total control of Jammu and Kashmir. But Pakistan says you are not.
We are in total control of the situation. General Kulkarni, taking that forward, Modi government in the last 2 terms has been known for their very robust national security policy, and in fact bringing a paradigm shift. The narrative, in fact, has been such. We have spoken about the surgical strikes, we have spoken about Balakot, we have spoken about a very robust and very important message by these counterattacks. But what do you think that the government of India, and particularly the Indian Army, should be prepared for, or perhaps do now? Do you think this is time, just like in 2003, Operation Sarf Vinash that happened, a similar kind of an operation? We know, of course, that a lot of special SF soldiers have been brought in to Jammu. But what, according to you, tactically, should be done as of now by the army in Jammu, in South of the Pir Panjal?
See, for the Sarf Vinash operation, the entire area was virtually sanitized. Sanitized in the sense these bakarwals were not permitted, and a special permission was taken. It was being held at a time when these bakarwals go and occupy. Because once the bakarwals are there, then the logistics, sustenance, information, everything goes off. So once that area was sanitized, then hundreds of them could be killed over there. Then it became an easy target. But now, when they have already infiltrated, there are 50, 60 of them moving around in small groups, 2, 3, everywhere, with tremendous amount of logistic support and assistance being provided to them by the OGWs. However hard we may try, it's not going to be easy. Why I say so? It's raining. The monsoons are there. The weather is so bad, the visibility is extremely poor. The area is forested. It's very tough. You can't see one person. You can sometimes miss out on a person who's just about 2 meters ahead of you. So in an area like that, operating, you can bring in 3,000 people. You can bring in all kinds of things. Yes, they will be on the run. Positively, they'll be on the run. You may find incidents going down. But to be able to eliminate them is something which I have my reservation. Because of the area, firstly. Secondly, because the inflow has to be there. Even if you have an inflow coming in, you really need people to be able to identify them. Now, these people who are working in conjunction with them are totally different lot. Now, they have compromised for small sums, big sums, whatever sum they be, whatever the reasons it may be. So, even though we have, and can you imagine Rajouri, Poonch, Riyasi, Kishtwar, Doda, Udhampur, your entire belt of touching Anantnag, from Kishwar itself, from Sinthan Pass, you can get into Anantnag. You go down
Right.
to Warwan and you can get into Anantnag from the Napachi side. You come down over here from Bhadarwa, you can get into Pir. So south of Pir Panjal, the terrain is very tough. Number one. Number two, if you have OGW network functioning, it's extremely difficult to be able to lab them. However, all kinds of, you'll have to human ink, which is the very, very important thing. Yeah, electronic, because now with Chinese apps coming in for them, we are finding it difficult to be able to monitor some of their communications. Then the Chinese involvement so deep now, being able to support them. You see the kind of steel bullets being given to them, the night vision devices being given to them, the M4 rifles which were left by the Americans in Afghanistan have reached them. So there's a huge amount, and probably lots of the Pakistani ex-servicemen may also be a part of this gang which is working over here. So there's a nexus, and 40-50 of them, 40-50 in groups of 2s and 3 in an area which may be over 10,000 square kilometers. You may be invested in lots of people over there, but the information flow is very difficult. Now,
Right.
what is to be done? That is most important. Now, all these are difficulties which are there. We can't do anything about it. We have to fight these challenges. First and foremost, we have to again get into a grid of intelligence. Eyes and ears, whether they're VDCs, whether they're SPOs, whether they're locals, they have to be a part. We have to again go back to the drawing board, winning hearts and minds of these people who are in
Absolutely.
the Jammu division. It's not difficult at all. It is not difficult. They have to go back again. We can't get complicit saying that once upon a time they were our friends. They may have been your friends once upon a time. You got to again build that friendship. You have to again start investigating. Pakistan is finding its feet because they've lost their relevance. Here we have already found our feet. We can't afford to lose that. It may take time. It may take years also. And we cannot. Even if troops will be pulled out. Obviously, you have shortage of troops. Troops will be pulled out. But the civilian administration must immediately take on responsibility. The civil police must take on. We may
Fair
have to
enough.
employ lots of our people. All these things have to be done to ensure that Jammu division, and let me tell you, it is not difficult. It was more difficult in the valley, which we have been able to control.
Right.
In Jammu division, there's lots of good support from the people. But people must, and again, last thing I would tell you, Aditya, is people must now come out on the streets in support of the security forces, in support of their people. They must not feel that the man who's dying is not from his state, so how does it matter? No, they are all Indians, we all are Indians, and until and unless there is total support and there is a total civil movement which goes against Pakistan's involvement, we may find it difficult.
Fair enough,
Because
General
we cannot
Kulkarni. Very
just-
important points there. We have to go back to the drawing board. But last 30 seconds to General Hasnain. If you can just sum it up, sir. For last several years, we've been speaking about this perception management, desperately Pakistan trying to internationalize the Kashmir issue. We've also questioned our own system, whether we are equipped for this perception management. But a lot has changed. We've seen the change in Kashmir Valley. Indian flags not only on the streets in Lal Chowk, we see massive tourism happening all across. We see a very successful Amarnath Yatra. I'm told yesterday a 4 lakh figure has crossed. But what would be your advice, or perhaps look at that crystal ball and see what's happening for the next 6 months? What should we be ready for?
See, Aditya, on the winning hearts and minds, there's no doubt we have taken this Jammu region for granted.
Right.
We have put all our focus on Kashmir and taken this area for granted. I think we correctly said we need to go back to the drawing board, make our outreach much more volatile, make sure that we are with the people, get them on board. But having said that, let me take 15 seconds to tell you, I agree with General Kulkarni on this aspect of operations, but I'll tell you from experience of 1999 that these operations are painstaking operations. We had a whole division force which came into the valley at that time in the height of Kargil. We used them everywhere to churn up the area, just like what we should be doing now on the Pir Panjal. Not a terrorist was killed, but what happened? We disturbed the logistics of the complete area, and not a single sustenance was left for the terrorists on top.
Right.
As a result, they were forced to come down, and through the winter of 99-2000 and the turn of the millennium, we were killing on an average 40 terrorists every month in this country. That's the kind of thing which we have to be prepared for. That's the kind of stamina we have to do.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the News 9 Plus show. We value your feedback, we value your comments, and please keep coming back here. Certainly, it's time to go back to the drawing board and perhaps have faith in the Indian Army and the security grid, who will certainly, in the Jammu division, neutralize the last terrorists who are hiding in there. Vice President Kamala Harris is yet to be officially nominated as the Democrat presidential candidate, but she has won endorsements from a majority of Democratic Party's pledged delegates, thus cementing her position as the front-runner and further discouraging any potential challengers. Not just that, 3 high-quality new polls now show Harris running essentially even with Trump, signaling that the dynamics of the presidential race could be now shifting. A report also suggests a memo that has gone out now from Trump's campaign, which has recognized that Vice President Kamala Harris has energized the Democratic campaign. So can Kamala Harris take on Donald Trump? Well, to discuss this, we have with us Ambassador Manju Seth, former Indian diplomat. We also have Nirmal Ibrahim, columnist and political analyst, Pramit Pal Chaudhary, a well-known speaker, and of course my colleague Justin Thomas here in the studio. Pramit, if I can come to you first, how do you see the shift in the narrative really in the US presidential race? It almost seemed that Democrats had almost given up. There was a lot of pressure, of course, building on Biden to step down, which he did on Sunday. But is the race becoming much more tighter and interesting with Kamala Harris? Perhaps formality left in August in the Democratic convention, there will be an announcement.
Yeah, I think her likelihood of becoming the Democratic candidate is now almost certain. As you mentioned, the majority of the convention delegates have already pledged their support to her. And it seems reasonably clear if you look at a long number of the people who were expected or who could have potentially have gone against her or fought with her, Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, and so on, all of them have declared their support for her. So I think there's a very clear move by the Democratic Party, consolidate, put a rally behind her. There's no point, make sure the convention does not become a battleground, as, for example, the 1968 Democratic Convention was, that destroyed the Hubert H. Humphrey presidential candidacy and led to Nixon's victory. So I think that's reasonably clear. The race now, the problem right now we're seeing, and we still have, remember, a fairly long time to go before the elections, yes, 4 months, is that we've seen the candidates go up and down. So, for example, on really the news cycle more than anything else. So we saw Trump go down in the numbers when he was being convicted and being tried and convicted in court for felony charges. We saw Biden then fall because of obviously the presidential debate and subsequent interviews where he fumbled. Then we saw Trump soar in the polls because of the assassination bid. And now we see Kamala Harris take over from Biden and increase by a couple of percentage points his standing because of the focus is now the media is on her. So that indicates that there isn't, the voters are still reasonably undecided. There's at least a small fragment of them because the numbers are not great. I mean, the differences are very small. Trump is leading Harris on average by about 1.5 to 2 percentage points in the popular vote.
Right.
But that's virtually within the statistical margin of error. But as you know, in America, it has an unusual thing. The popular vote does not matter. It's the electoral college that decides the presidency. And the Republicans have always had an edge in the electoral college because of their disproportionate strength in these small states across the Midwest and the North and the South. So these states, if you look at them, then the picture is still advantage Trump, but by a degree that we're not completely certain about. So if you look at the standard 6 swing states in America right now, Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan, it more or less looks like Trump leading by about 4 to 5 percentage points, but against Harris. But a lot of it will depend on who Harris chooses as a vice presidential candidate. because, for example, if she chooses a person from Michigan, then Michigan will probably swing into her camp immediately. But on the other hand, if you look at Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, for example, those are states where it's literally 50-50 within the Trump leads, but within the statistical margin of error. The state of North Carolina, nobody knows because nobody has done a poll of Trump versus Harris before in that state. And so we'd have to see what happens. But you'll notice that the three top candidates for the vice presidential position that Harris is supposedly looking at are all white males from swing states. So she's very clearly trying to balance her ticket because she knows that she has to bring these swing states, she has to bring at least 2 or 3 of them on board, or otherwise the electoral college is Trump's.
Fair enough. Let me go across to Ambassador Manju Seth at this point in time. Ambassador Seth, my point-blank question to you is the narrative that has been set over the last few days. That is that could America actually have the first woman president? I remember in 2020, I was traveling through DC and Iowa through the primaries, and there was Elizabeth Warren, Nikki Haley, and many others that were being talked about. But the common American on the streets, especially in Iowa, told me that no, perhaps it's not time, or we will not vote for a woman. So my question to you, ma'am, is that has America entered that kind of a maturity as of now, where we actually see America actually electing a woman candidate?
And I think America is moving in that direction. I think biases and deep ingrained sort of prejudices are still very much prevalent across the world, including in America. So I think that is going to be a little factor against it. But I feel now with this, with the age debate and all the other issues that that are now entering into the presidential debate, including migration, including immigration. And as very rightly mentioned, she will have to cater in the swing states by Pramit that they have to be all white males. And I think that says, because, people, as you said, people on the streets are not very keen that a woman come in. But I think it is shifting overall, especially after the abortion bill. A lot of women are looking for a woman to be at the top, so that women's issues and the women's perspective is brought to bear on all decisions. And if you look at what Trump has been saying, he's against abortion, what the Republicans are saying. So I think all those factors will also play into this election. And of course, 4 months is a long time, but the chances are that now America appears to be moving, or appears to be almost ready. I won't say fully ready for a woman president. And
Nirmal,
I think she seems to be the right.
Right. Fair enough. If I can take that to Nirmal. Nirmal, there's a lot of heated debate going on in the South Asians, in India, and of course back there in the US as well. Where do you think their loyalty really lies as of now? They've been traditionally Democrats, but could we see a shift really happening this time around? And particularly on J.D. Vance, how do you see his announcement really? Will that really swing the South Asian vote?
I don't think so. J.D. Vance, more than J.D. Vance, I think it's basically Trump.
Right.
And Trump, I mean, ever since the assassination attempt, as one of the panelists rightly pointed out, his numbers have gone up. But you'll have to look at Kamala now. Now the entire dynamic changes because Biden is out of the picture, Kamala has come into the picture. And to her advantage, there is one thing that will be to her advantage, because when you speak of the 6 swing states, there was a poll that came out stating that in these 6 swing states, that can completely swing the election either way. At the forefront of all the issues is abortion, and that is what Kamala has been focusing on. That could work in her advantage. Number 2, she's young, so she can lure in a lot of young voters. She's a woman. If she wins, it'll be historic. So that can lure in a lot of women voters. And also, if you look at, I mean, if she picks the right VP for her, I mean, we spoke about white candidates as Obama did in 2008 and 12. He picked Biden, and similarly, Kamala would have a white male candidate preferably, and that would also gain her some votes. But on the flip side, the other side, unfortunately for Kamala, she's actually the VP of a bad presidency, unfortunately, because if you just purely look at the numbers, inflation, average inflation, when Trump left office, the average inflation was between 1.2 to 1.4%. Right now, it's 3.6%, thrice the inflation. If you look at gas prices, when Trump left, the gas prices were 2.2 per gallon. Now the gas prices, the average gas price is 3.6, going up to at least 4.7 in states like California. That's also double the gas price. If you look at the increase in national debt, the increase in national debt in the first 3 years of the Trump presidency was 3 trillion. And the increase in national debt in the first 3 years of Biden presidency was 12 trillion, 4 times. So people are aware of these facts. So it's a question of whether they'll go for, vote for social justice, whether they vote for the economy. The other thing is peace. Because if you look at Trump's presidency, in all 4 years of Trump presidency, we did not have wars. There were no disputes. But if you look at Biden's presidency, unfortunately, we have had the Ukraine-Russia war, where the US supported Ukraine, stating that they are the victim. In the Israel-Palestine war, they've supported Israel, forgetting that they're the aggressor. And also, the China-Taiwan issue has cropped up. And so all of these things combined, I think she'll have to answer these, and also illegal immigration. It's interesting to see how she will respond to questions about illegal immigration, because now the narrative has changed. I mean, before, 4 years back in the 2020 election, I've seen a lot of South Asian or Indian immigrants thinking that Trump was actually anti-immigration. Now they know for a fact that Trump is not anti-immigration, he's actually anti-illegal immigration. And for the people who went there, waiting for 10, 12 years, going through the process, waiting in the lines, they know that immigration is a process, and they accept and understand what Trump is saying. So it'll be interesting to see how she navigates through those questions.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see whether they agree to debate each other and come out on their policies, really. Justin, what do you think on that? It's going to be a very interesting and perhaps a very bitter debate if that really happens. And how do you see this campaign really exciting the voters out there? It was a given when Biden had put out his nomination, but this time it seems that it's really going to be a bitter out there.
Yeah, for Kamala's campaign team has been successful in the past 48 hours. In fact, they've managed almost like $100 million in contribution and donations. So what we can clearly see is that Democratic Party is back in terms of from the setback they suffered during the first debate, where they were completely, caught off guard by Biden's situation, how he can be a perfect candidate for the party. So now they don't have that issue, but what they have right now, as he mentioned clearly, like first say the illegal immigration part, Kamala Harris was the person who was supposed to handle the border issues and all that, and on that front she has clearly not performed the kind of performance that Democratic Party wanted. There were challenges that they were facing. Republican Party exposed those challenges. So Kamala Harris is very clearly lined up for an interesting debate with Trump, and it remains to be seen what the focus that is going to be there is how she can't, because Trump was always focusing on the Biden's issues, health issues, so that kind of things have been taken off the plate. So how they re-energize themselves, bring back themselves to campaign against Kamala needs to be seen. But yes, clearly it's going to be a big clash and heated debate.
Well, I want to take that, the issue of campaign to Pramit. Pramit, how will Kamala Harris's campaign differ from Biden's? Or perhaps if you can compare Kamala's, upcoming campaign with Biden's campaign last time around, do you think there will be same kind of enthusiasm, support down on ground for Kamala?
Well, I think one, you're looking at a campaign that is extremely foreshortened. I mean, we're only looking at 2 or 3 months in which she has to put together a campaign, because I wouldn't say she's unknown to a lot of voters, but she is unknown in the sense that they don't know what she stands for or how good she is. Because vice presidents, while they get a little bit of media coverage in America, are almost invisible to a large extent. And the social media portrayal of her, I think, is being generally negative. that basically she's a bit of an empty head or doesn't say much that's important and doesn't have much policy interest. She definitely has no major successes as a vice president. She was asked to handle migration. She was asked to handle the Indo-Pacific. She was asked to handle a number of different things and didn't do a particularly a great job about them. But, vice president doesn't have much to do. So her game is in the next 4 months, I think, one, show that I'm able to be a president, because she hasn't had that much government experience. She was only a senator for a few years, actually. And that was pretty much it. Second, she will play up issues like abortion, because they are genuinely popular among swing voters, and especially among women voters, even Republican women.
Right.
This is a big issue. In the same way that Trump will play up migration, which I think is his strong point. And I think also she will position herself as a centrist to try to avoid being portrayed as a member of the sort of woke left. And she'll hit out at Trump really hard on the felony charges, that this is a president. Do you really want to have a president who's a convicted felon, who should be in jail as a president? And that's going to be the big things, I think, in the swing states in particular, where you have a fairly disproportionate number of independent voters or genuine conservative Republicans, who are the ones who don't necessarily care much for Trump and who would have preferred if you were a more traditional Republican candidate.
Ambassador Seth, if I can take that forward, issues like abortion rights, issues like insurance coverage, and perhaps the biggest of all, healthcare, are perhaps very important, pragmatic and polarizing issues in this particular campaign. And as Pramit put initially in his initial remarks, that the contest is very interesting now. Kamala Harris as of now is just perhaps 2 points ahead of Trump. Will this be a very tightly and closely contested election? And which are the factors that will be pivotal in the next 6 months?
As you mentioned, yes, all these issues will be very important during the campaign, and she needs to, of course, put her act together and get all the issues and her views on all these issues very clear. And this contest is going to be a very keenly fought one. But yes, a great point in her favor is that she has had a very good record, a professional record, whereas I think President Trump has been convicted. He has been, charged with, state secret, state secrets being revealed, etc., or having them in his home, and unauthorized kind of, work that he did in his official capacity as well in his unofficial capacity. All the allegations of his misconducts, personal misconduct, and I think all those issues she will highlight, and I think they need to be highlighted. Because a president's conduct is also important. I mean, it's work-wise, whatever it is, but I think it is important for him to be above and being compliant with the law. And having been convicted, I think, he will be at a disadvantage as compared to her. And she's an unknown person in the current campaign, in the sense that her policies on many issues are still not very widely known, and I think she'll have to work on those and present those, and I think it'll be a keenly contested election, but it'll be a good thing for America to face all these issues that have been, sort of agitating the minds of everybody, including the wars. She'll have to take a good decision on that. The Democrats have been supporting these wars, but I think they also need to think about finding solutions to both the wars. And I think that, I feel, will be a perspective that a positive perspective that she will bring to the table to find a solution. That's my view. And she would, I think, be able to address these issues, because the Trump campaign has been saying that these wars should end immediately. As soon as I come, I will end them. So she needs to have her strategy in place to see how to find a solution and end these wars, which have been taxing for the whole world, but also for the American people.
Well, Kamala Harris has to have a strategy in place. And apart from that, of course, a lot of work to do. But last word to Nirmal. Trump has had a lot of nasty things to say about Kamala. How do you think he would be preparing as of now? Do you see any kind of surprises in store over the next few weeks?
No, I think it would be, Trump would always be himself. I think he'll throw a lot of insults, including the fact that she was the first presidential nominee to pull out of the race in 2020. She did not get many votes. She wasn't that popular. That's one. He would also bring forward the fact that even when she became the chief prosecutor of California, she won by 1 point, and he would bring that up. He would definitely bring up the fact that she was reasonably inactive vice president, and that she's not aware of what's happening in the border, that she has not given a solution in terms of what's going on with the wars. So he will bring up a lot of those insults as usual. But the good thing about Kamala compared to Biden is that she was a prosecutor. On the other hand, Trump was almost executed. So the difference is she has the power. She has the power in debates to put him in a spot. I believe if you notice the debate between her and Mike Pence, the last time she did perform well, but Trump is a different beast altogether when it comes to debates. So it'll be interesting to see. He will throw a lot of insults. Kamala will definitely be able to defend that is what I think. So it'll be a 50-50 contest. Let's see.
It will be a 50-50 contest. Thank you all for joining us on the News9 Plus show. It will be an interesting but certainly a bitter contest up ahead between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Keep watching the News9 Plus show. Thank you.